In today's lesson, we are going to solve quadratic equation by completing the squares. But first, we need to understand these two important concept or important relationship by the method that we are going to use now. The square of binomial and its relationship to the perfect square trinomial. In order for us to get this relationship, let's have this example. Square of a binomial is simply like this. Let's say we have x plus y squared. So that is an example of a square of a binomial. So its corresponding perfect square trinomial is simply like this. Equals, so let's try. The shortcut in solving a perfect square trinomial is the first one. You need to square the first term. So square the first term. X times x is x squared. Then to get the second term, we need to multiply x, the first term, which is x, and the last term, which is y. So we have xy. Then multiply it to 2. Then copy the sign. So we have plus 2xy. Then, to get the third term, we need to just simply square the last term. So we have plus y squared. So that's the relationship between a square of a binomial into a perfect square trinomial. So, let's try another example. What if we have this square of binomial? We have 3x plus 2y squared. What its corresponding perfect square trinomial? First, square the first term. So 3x squared is equal to 9x squared. So we have 9x squared. Then multiply the first and the last term. So we have 3x times 2y is 6xy. Then multiply by 2. So we have 12xy. Then copy the sign. 12xy. The next thing is square the last term. 2y square is 4y square plus 4y square. Gets? So, let's try another example. What if we have the given perfect square trinomial? How are we going to convert it into a square of a binomial? So, for example, we have this. For example, we have this. We have 4x squared minus 16xy plus 16y squared. The answer is very simple. How are we going to convert it into square of binomial? We need to only get the square root of it. We need to get the square root of this and the square root of this. and copy the sign. So we have, for the first term, get the square root of 4x squared, which is 2x. Then copy the sign, which is minus. Then get the square root of 16y squared, which is 4y. Then let's put square here. So that's it. That is the relationship between the square of a binomial and a perfect square trinomial. Knowing that relationship, we can now go to the method of solving quadratic equation by completing the square. Now, let's try solving quadratic equation by completing the square. Take note that the method or completing the square method can be used if we can't use extracting the square root on solving a quadratic equation, and if we can't use factoring method on solving quadratic equation. So in order for us to understand this, let's try an example. Let's say we have x squared plus 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. Based on that, we can't use extracting the square root, and we can't use also factoring method. So, completing the square is a perfect one. Completing the square has a step like this. The first thing we need to do is to put on the right side the constant. So, we have x squared plus 4x, then isolate, transpose positive 1 to the right side, so it becomes negative 1. The next thing we need to do is to make this equation a perfect square trinomial. So how are we going to get the perfect square trinomial? So first, let's have this. We have x squared plus 4x plus the one that we are looking for equals to negative 1 plus the one we are looking for. So how are we going to solve for that value here? To solve it and to make it this equation a perfect square trinomial, let's just simply divide 4x into 2. 4, okay? 4 into 2. So we have 2. Then 2, multiply it by itself or square it. So we have 4. Okay? Gets the concept? Just simply divide it to 2, then square the answer. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, then square it. 2 square is 4. So our value here is 4. So if we add 4 on this side, we just need to add 4 on this side. So let's add 4 here. Now, as you notice, this given equation is a perfect square trinomial. Now, this perfect square trinomial, we need to transform it into a square of binomial. So what is the technique that we need to know to convert it or to transform it into a square of a binomial? First, square the first term, or get the square root of the first term. Square root of x squared is x. Then copy the sign of the middle sign. Then get the square root of 4, which is 2. then right square. Then we can solve. -1 plus 4 is 3. Now, we can now extract the square root. So, extract the square root. So, we can cancel it. So, we have x plus 2 equals to positive, negative, square root of 3. So, the value of x, we can transpose positive 2 here. So, we have x is equal to positive, negative, square root of 3 minus 2. So, that is our final answer. Okay, let's try another example. Okay, let's try another example. Let's say we have 4x squared plus 24x minus 8 is equal to 0. As you can see on the equation, it is divisible on 4. So we can divide 4 on both sides. So divide 4 on both sides. So we can divide it. 4 divided by 4, we have now x squared. 4 divided by 24, we have now 6x. And 4 divided by negative 8 is negative 2 equals 0. So now we have this new equation. Okay? We have this new equation now. Just rewrite it first. X squared plus 6x minus 2 equals to 0. Okay, the step on completing the square is just simply like this. First, put on the right side the constant. So we have x squared plus 6x, transpose negative 2 on the other side, so we have positive 2. Then, we need to transform it, or we need to make it a perfect square trinomial. So how are we going to do that? We just need to divide this 6x or this 6 to 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then, square the answer. So 3 square is 9. So we have this equation now. X squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 2 plus 9. Gets? If we add 9 here, we need to add 9 here. What we do here is what we do here. Okay? Now, the next thing we need to do is to transform this perfect square trinomial into square of a binomial. So that's the essence of creating it as perfect square trinomial. And that's the relationship of perfect square trinomial into square of binomial. So transform it into square of a binomial. So first, get the square root of the first term. So we have x. Copy the sign of the middle term. Then get the square root of the last term. So we have 3. Then we have square here. Then we have 2 plus 9 is equal to 11. The next thing we need to do is to isolate, or just get the square root rather. So get the square root of both sides. So we can cancel here. So we have now x plus 3 is equal to positive negative square root of 11. Then transpose positive 3 on the other side. We get now x is equal to positive negative square root of 11 minus 3. So that's the answer. I hope you learned something. Thank you.